Not too long ago, I did a reaction video on a Red Table Talk. It tore me up because it just touched my heart as a mother whose life choices have negatively impacted her children. I just got such a catharsis when I listen to two women in the same boat as I am. This is the video, that's what it looks like. I'll put it at the end of this as well so that you can click right through and watch my reaction to it. But I was talking to my sister the other day about how to navigate that area after you have come through your healing process. You've come to terms and accepted your responsibility in how it affected your children. And the importance of being able to realize that even though you have regrets about how that affected your children, unfortunately, we can't fix it. It's in the past. And we need to come to terms with understanding that as unfair as it is, those children have to come through their own healing processes in order to get free from that trauma and that damage. The other thing we need to address, or accept, I should say, is that we have to allow our children the space they need to do that. Now, when I say children, they'll always be our children. But I'm talking about older kids as they grow older, get into their 20s, and they're out on their own. Sometimes they don't want to have anything to do with your behind. I went through that with my son. And in order to deal with that, I just came to terms with I made those decisions. It's negatively affected him. And the best I can do is acknowledge that I know that to him and acknowledge that I regret that happened and that I understand that it hurt him. But at the same time, I had to deliberately give him his space. So when he didn't want to have anything to do with me, I wasn't trying to chase him down. I wasn't aggravating him. I wasn't contacting him. And I had to be at peace inside with that. If he ever came back around and decided he wanted to have a relationship with me, that was totally his choice. And whatever his decision in that regard was, I had to continue to live my life in peace, regardless of what he chose to do. There were years when he didn't have anything to do with me. Okay, there were years before he actually talked to me about his perspective on everything that happened. And we kind of started spending more time together and establishing a relationship before my book came out. Here it is. But once my book came out and he read it, he just said it just opened up so much more understanding for him. He understood me better. It was just a healing process for him to understand me on that level. So then our relationship got even better. I said all of that to say that there are certain things that we as women or fathers who have made life decisions that were hurtful to our children, and that we might watch that hurt and that trauma playing out in their current lives. There's certain things that we need to do. And as I was talking to my sister, I took some notes on what we were saying. The first thing and the most profound thing that we need to do is to understand the difference between regret and shame. This is a quote from a piece on the networkcapital.com. It says, regret is I did something bad. Shame is I am something bad. It's two different things. And when our children are estranged from us, it can perpetuate the false narrative that we are something bad. And as that we are something bad narrative gets ingrained into who we are, it just separates us further and further from the truth that we need to know, acknowledge, and embrace. Because by knowing it, acknowledging, and embracing that truth, then we can begin the healing process, because they have to go through their healing process and you have to go through yours. Your healing process cannot be predicated upon how well they do or don't go through their healing process. And their healing process cannot be predicated upon how well you go through yours. It's two separate things. So yeah, you did something bad, but you should not be ashamed. It's okay to regret, I did something bad. But it's not okay to say that you are something bad. Understand that difference. The reason this is important to know is because shame keeps blaming yourself for the repercussions. When you're operating out of shame, you keep blaming yourself for the repercussions. Why is this important? Because these repercussions will keep coming back, especially if you're having to watch the children you love making wrong decisions and mistakes in their lives because of the trauma your life decisions perpetuated in their lives. When you take the regret route and start embracing the truth about that and come along your process of healing, then it becomes easier along that process not to keep blaming yourself for their life decisions. Now, when you say that you're not going to receive the blame or accept the blame for their life decisions, you're simply acknowledging you're not acknowledging, ain't my fault kind of thing. You understand how your actions perpetuated the challenges that they're having. But at the same time, you understand the truth that you cannot change that past that caused that, but that they have to navigate and learn how to get through the trauma and heal enough to make better life decisions. That's especially hard for us when we're estranged from them, because they don't want to hear from us. Please, seriously, nah, bye, click, right? So you have to understand that while your life decisions perpetuated that, as unfair as it is, their responsibility for healing is theirs and theirs alone. You have to accept that you can't fix it. Seems simple enough to say, but I really need you to listen to that. When we stay stuck on something we did in the past that harmed our children, we have trouble getting to the I can't fix it stage because we are still connecting ourselves to their repercussions. Does that make sense? And when one of those repercussions is that they estrange themselves from you, then that's also difficult to address, because as you heal, you feel like, okay, I've got a better understanding, got a better grip on this. I'm ready to acknowledge my wrong to them, apologize to them, and acknowledge that you understand how you played into the trauma that they experienced. But you separate the fact that now that's your responsibility. Your healing is your responsibility, and I can't fix it. I can't fix it. And if your past trauma, the trauma that you went through that led you into the decisions you made that are harming your children, then you got that trauma to deal with as well. Okay. And that trauma might have you set up on a level in your mind where you want to fix everything. And so now you trigger because they won't let you fix everything. They don't even want to hear your opinion on stuff. And now you're stuck over here with not being able to accept that you can't fix it now. There's no way to go back in the past and fix that. So what do you have to do? You have to pick up where you are and accept this. I can do better going forward. I can't fix the past, but I can do better going forward. I can do better by my children. I can do better by myself, on behalf of myself. I can do better. And then you focus on the better, the doing better. Why is that empowering? That's empowering because we only have the present. We don't have the past, and our future is ahead of us. But in the present, where we have some kind of locus of control, it's here that we have our greatest power. And when you focus on today and the current situation, then you can really feel more empowered, and you can have more positive influence even in your children's life if you accept that I can do better going forward. That's all you can do. And you have to accept it that doing better may or may not be recognized by your children. And you cannot judge that progress on your own behalf with doing better by how they respond or fail to respond to it. It's not about doing better in order to impress them or anybody else. It's about doing better because you're moving into thriving after surviving your own trauma, and the trauma that you perpetuated not only in their lives, that trauma was perpetuated for you as well. And you're going through that trauma has affected your children. So all you can do is do better going forward. The next thing you can do, be there for them when they're ready to talk. And understand this, as you have healed, you will come to a point where you can be there for them when they want to talk, because it's going to be very difficult at first. Because you will be triggered multiple times. Because I always say this, nobody else wants to listen to what you got to say unless and until you have listened to them and they feel heard. And so that means it's going to be a whole bunch of shut up, suck it up, and listen up going on in the beginning, because you need to allow them the room to vent. And their perspectives may not make any sense to you. They may be believing the wrong stuff. They have gone down this rabbit trail for decades, even with believing the wrong stuff. But in these times, especially in the beginning, when they begin to come to you, you leave an open door. Let them know you'll be there whenever they want to talk. But in the meantime, you're going to have a lot of internal work you need to do in order to be able to listen to that without defending yourself, without getting offended. And you need to learn how to truly listen to what they're saying and be intent on listening instead of hearing something. Now you stuck trying to figure out what your comeback's going to be. It ain't about that. And in that moment, it's about them. It's not about you. So you have a lot of head work to do with respect to your healing to do before you can truly be there for them when they want to talk. The other thing that you should do and can do is to, when you see behaviors that are tied to their past, tied to the trauma that your decisions perpetuated in their lives, you need to be able to address those areas with them where they don't see the connection. So this is one good way that it's important for us to focus on our healing, because to the extent that they allow themselves back into our lives and want to establish that relationship with us, then we will be able to call out some of those behaviors that we see and help them to connect it to their trauma. That's very healing, because what it does, it helps them to see, well, wait a minute. Now, I've been on this default setting all of these years, and it's always not been a good thing. So when you talk it out with them, they can figure out where it's coming from, what it's connected to. So that's another way that you can, in the moment, help to empower your children to move through their own healing process. In doing that, you want to make sure that you're understanding and appreciate the importance of dealing with that stuff in the now. So in other words, if you see that going on and you are able to talk with them and you can just hear them out, listen intently, and then draw them through a process where you might ask a number of questions that might lead up to the fact that, do you think that might be connected to what you went through with me? Do you think that might be connected to the trauma that I perpetuated in your life? How did you address that when you felt that at age 6, 7, 8? Be able to address everything in the current time so that they can see the connection to the past is very powerful. And here's another one. It takes a lot of our own healing in order not to allow their trauma to keep us from loving them. So if you're coming from a shame-based position where you think you are the wrong instead of just you did the wrong, okay, then you're going to really kick back when their trauma's kicking up in their attitude or the way they talk to you or them just isolating or estranging themselves from you. You have to be healthy enough in the face of all of that to still love them for who they are, even in the face of that. And that doesn't happen overnight. It takes you're going through a lot of healing. It takes you separating what you did from who you are. Okay. And so to separate that takes that healing process. But one of the powerful things that comes out of that healing process is that you're able to love them through it. Love them in spite of it. I loved my son in spite of the fact that he was drawing up these pictures in his mind and he really felt like he was rejected by me and that he just wasn't good enough for me. And why wasn't he good enough for me? You can understand a child coming to those conclusions. And sometimes it takes them maturing enough to be able to understand certain things that maybe they wouldn't understand as a child. But I never stopped loving him. And even in the middle of the very hard conversations in which I had to shut up, suck it up, and listen up, I still loved him. And we're not able to separate their do from their who if we haven't healed. So don't allow their trauma responses to keep you from loving your child and expressing that you love them to the extent that they will allow it. And this is the last and most powerful tip. What is the goal in the aftermath of the trauma that led you to make the decisions that you made that affected your children negatively? And in the here and now, what should be your goal? First and foremost, we've already said it many times during this video, your healing process. But beyond that, the goal should be your children being free of the trauma responses that may be ruling their lives. And if that's your goal, to see them free, then it's not about you in many situations and in many conversations. It's not about you and your wanting to spout off or be triggered or come defensively. We have to keep in mind that if the goal is that we want to see our children free of the trauma that we may have perpetuated in their lives, that in those hard moments, in those hard conversations, it's always got to be about them. The goal is to see them free. How? By modeling that thriving after surviving trauma, by modeling the hard work it takes to be self-aware, by modeling the hard work it takes to walk through your trauma, and by modeling that, becoming the person it takes to help to take their hands and walk them through to the same freedom. I certainly hope this was helpful to you. Always remember, your greatest power is realizing the truth of who you are. Know that truth. Be sure to subscribe below. Hit the subscribe button. It's absolutely free to do so. Share this with someone you think it might help. And take advantage of my complimentary 30-minute breakthrough session. Just go to lindafwilliams.com and schedule it now.